Joining me now is Isobel Marshall. Let's return to Canberra, the Young Australian of the Year. Isobel, congratulations. Thank you for joining us on the program at the moment. How does it feel to have won this award, to have your work recognised in such a way?
Thank you so much for having me. It feels amazing, so humbling and such an incredible surprise. On behalf of our Taboo team and my co-founder Eloise Hall, we are just absolutely stoked that our cause is being recognised on such an incredible platform and to a whole range of people, a whole range of Australians from all different backgrounds, because I guess menstruation is the topic that we're talking about, and that's for everyone to join into the conversation. So this is very exciting. Well,
let's talk about Taboo for a second. What was the spark that made you want to create it?
There was pretty much two aspects to that. We had just been introduced to the social enterprise model, which is a new way of doing business, and it's going to revolutionise our world and the way we do things with markets and the amazing power that markets have. What it means is that you take advantage of the demand for a product or a service, and then you provide that product or service, and then use your profits to fund a related project or cause. So for us, we had just recently come across the realities that women around the world face as soon as they get their period. Things like dropping out of school as soon as they start bleeding, things like not being able to work, not being able to be financially independent, and then there's a whole range of things around menstrual stigma, and that looks different all around the world. But we kind of married up the...
Yeah, sorry. I mean, the period poverty, isn't it? That's how it's referred to it, and I suppose a lot of people might not be aware of what that actually is.
Yeah, it encapsulates a whole group of things. I mean, when a woman gets her period in different communities, different cultures or different contexts, it looks different for them, and the repercussions are different. So that, as I said, might mean having to drop out of school as soon as you get your period, just because you can't afford products to protect yourself during that time, or you can't access products during that time, or perhaps the menstrual stigma is just so great that the risk of bleeding onto your uniform and being shamed for that is actually greater than the risk of not having an education. So it's absolutely terrible, because periods are a natural biological function that we need to make our species keep going. So we became quite angry that was stopping women from reaching their potential in this way. That's why we decided to marry it up.
Sure, okay. So basically, once you became aware of this, your conscience took over and you had to help.
Yeah, definitely. We were very keen to offer our own brand of pads and tampons to the Australian market, and then dedicate our net profits to a charity partner that addresses period poverty in Uganda and Sierra Leone, amongst an array of other amazing projects.
So when you were conducting your research, what was it that shocked you the most?
Eloise Hall, my co-founder, and I went to Kenya and India in 2018, and that first-hand experience was shocking. We followed a couple of organisations into very rural Kenyan schools, and we saw firsthand these girls that were walking 3 hours to get to school, and when they had their period and had period pains, they didn't know what to do in the dark. Should they sit by the road? That's very dangerous. All these very complex issues that kind of were brought to the floor, and with things that we hadn't even considered as very privileged people in Australia with access to pads and tampons. So the complexities really came out, and in India specifically, the cultural stigma really came out, and we realised that lots of women can't talk about these issues.
And has there been a point, Isobel, where you realised that, wow, the work that you are doing is starting to make a difference?
Yeah, it's difficult because a lot of our mission focuses on addressing that menstrual stigma. And look, we're even doing it now, just talking about this issue on TV. And so a lot of that sort of stuff can't really be measured, but it looks like households feeling more comfortable around the conversation when their daughter might first get their period, things like that. So we've had amazing feedback in that regard. People are feeling more comfortable around the conversation, and that's half of our job done.
Yeah.
Of course, we've got the period poverty globally, and we're working towards our first donation to our charity partner. And in the meantime, we're working on some amazing local period poverty projects for Australian women. So that's looking amazing. We've been able to have some amazing donations through that project.
And just from what you can tell, how widespread is it?
Period poverty?
Yeah.
Oh, it's absolutely everywhere. It looks different in different places, but in general, it's the disadvantage that someone bleeding will experience because of their period, and everyone who's had their period can relate.
Yeah.
It might just be the awkward stain that you've got on your pants because you just couldn't get to the bathroom, and that's an issue. And it could be having to drop out of school. So there's a spectrum, and it's pretty prevalent.
What more needs to be done, Isobel? You've already achieved so much in this space. What more needs to be done in your view?
Well, for Taboo, for our team, we can make the biggest difference if we sell as much of our product as we can, so that we can then donate as much of our profit as we can. So that's our number one goal. And then, of course, as I said, just starting the conversations, it's really hard to measure that, but we're feeling the comfortableness increase around us in Australia and in our community as well. So we've been really excited about that, but there is a long way to go.
Yeah, and the education programs that you got running in Africa at the moment, do you want to try and expand those?
So that's headed up by One Girl, our charity partner.
Yeah.
We have some amazing education programs that we head up in Australia through schools in specifically SA, but we've also spoken to some schools in Victoria and New South Wales, which is really exciting, over Zoom and things like that. And that's just to empower young schoolgirls and people who are just starting to get their period, that this is not weird, you're not odd. This is a completely natural process. It might hurt, you might need to go to the GP, but it's also just about making sure that those young people don't feel disempowered or like they have not as much access to opportunities just because they're bleeding.